Hello, hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin, a corporate marketing manager by day, podcast host by night, and single mom to 2 young daughters 24/7. In short, PG-ish parenting is the cliff notes to personal growth as a parent. Since those kiddos are always watching and learning from the adults in their life, like you, PG-ish is parenting guidance-ish to support a life worthy of imitating. Welcome and enjoy. As you know, there truly isn't a handbook to this parenting gig. There are plenty of books for sure, but until you live it, you have no idea. You will stumble, you will fall, you will succeed, and you will try again and again to get it right. Yet, there's no right way to do it. And let me tell you, the highs and lows I've experienced just the past few weeks have been intense. If you have a preteen or a teen, oh my goodness, do I see you. Maybe you can relate to this also. Now that my kiddos are older and as their personalities come out more and more through conversations and intentional interactions, I realize, which I guess I always knew, but that there is still so much to learn about them and me. And that's truly the premise of PG-ish, to grow alongside your kiddo, to evolve and learn from each other. But side note, if parenting is all too challenging or your kiddo is going through a rough patch, BetterHelp Online Therapy can help. With a team of licensed therapists and counselors, BetterHelp offers confidential and convenient online therapy sessions that you can access from the comfort of your own home. Their online platform is easy to use and offers a variety of therapy options, including chat, phone, and video sessions. Their therapists can provide the guidance and support you need to overcome your challenges and achieve your goals. Sign up with BetterHelp at betterhelp.com/PG-ish to save 10%, because truly your mental health is worth investing in. But let's not get too sidetracked. Today, I have a special guest who brings a wealth of knowledge and who actually wrote a guidebook called Parent Compass, Navigating Your Teen's Wellness and Academic Journey in Today's Competitive World. This book is filled with invaluable wisdom, and we'll be delving into some of those nuggets today. My guest, Cindy Muchnick, is not only an expert in the college admission process, but also a former private counselor who has guided countless high school students on their academic journeys. Since closing her private practice in 2011, Cindy has been passionately sharing her insights through public speaking engagements to student, parent, school, and business groups. In today's episode, we'll explore key topics from her guidebook, such as how to truly see and appreciate your teen, becoming a better listener, and how to ask better questions, as well as helping your teen develop self-advocacy skills. Get ready for a conversation filled with valuable insights. So I'm thrilled to introduce Cindy Muchnick and share her expertise with you today. Let's dive in. Cindy, I'm so excited to have you on PG-ish today. I read Parent Compass. I have it right here with me. I have dog-eared so many pages. It's such a great book. So thank you for writing it.
Oh, thank you for reading it.
Yeah, no. And it was funny because, and I don't know if you've heard this a lot, but as I was reading through it, I found myself dissecting my own childhood and being like, oh, like, is that why I am the way I am? Or like, if my parents had done it this way, would I, XYZ would have happened? I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I can just let that go. But
it makes you think for sure.
Yes, no doubt. And I really loved how you started the book with a self-assessment test, because this is the whole premise of PG-ish. It's coming back to us as the parents, right? And, it all starts with us. And I just really loved how you just started the book with that and that focus. I love how you call it like, know yourself, physician, heal thyself. And I just really love that phrase, because I think so easily we want to like parent and like really like be all over our children and put parameters on them, but it really is how we lead.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That chapter that you talked about, which I think we call it like looking backward in order to look forward. We did not write that chapter until the entire book was finished.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So once the book was done, we felt like there was this gaping hole, and we didn't address the fact that every parent brings their own baggage to the table. Yeah. And how could we have not spent some time really exploring that? And what's a kind of succinct way to get into that? And so Jen and I created together this chapter, kind of this physician heal thyself, where you and your partner or you and your spouse or the adults that are in these kids' lives can really look back and say, what were my values growing up? How was I parented? How did I view academics? How was academics viewed in my home or activities or all the things that we worry about now? Or were they not worried about it all? And what was my journey, either academically or professionally? And how might that affect the lens of the way that I'm parenting? And so we created this questionnaire that allows teens and parents to get together and go a little bit deeper than they otherwise would before I help my kid and before I put my parenting hat on. And then let me sit down with my teen and get some feedback from them, which is so fascinating to ask your kid for parenting feedback because they go, wait, what? Like, you don't think you're perfect and have figured this all out. And they have an opportunity to share with you things that they wish you might do differently or the way you might handle things differently with them or communicate differently with them. And it brings you incredibly close. So we have found that first chapter to be really, pivotal and essential. So I'm glad that you hooked in on that.
Yeah. And what you said about bringing a certain lens to our parenting is so crucial, right? Because we put that lens on our children subconsciously. And it's good to reassess like how we're actually parenting because we do bring in that baggage.
For sure.
Just the past couple of weeks, as I was reading through it, I caught myself doing things with my own kids and it was like, oh, wait, maybe I should approach it this way. And just that idea of having that long view in mind, because so easily we get so caught up in the moment and you just forget of like, I am parenting this little one now, but I'm trying to prepare them for adulthood. And yet you just forget all the tools that you've learned in the heat of a moment.
It's true. The idea of taking the long view, it's kind of tricky. And if we sort of look at what's the whole scheme of what this life is going to look like in these 18 years that they're going to live under your roof, you don't really have to plan college at age 5. You can kind of think more about looking at the long view. It might seem like that's looking out at college way down the line, but not really that, or whatever it is they do after high school, because not every kid even chooses college as a route. But that being said, it's more the long view of what do we want that relationship that we have with them to look like once they leave our home, and how can we preserve that relationship and keep it intact while we're helping them grow and helping them become little individuals and celebrating their individuality. So it is tricky because, again, we put on our own perspective of how are we parented, what things are important to us. These are not our trophies. They are not our robots. They are not, they're an extension of our hearts, but they are little individual people with their own likes and dislikes that we need to sort of jump on and support what their journey is going to be. And I think the easiest way is to remind ourselves that we had our turn and now it's their turn. And it's hard to separate yourself because that love is so fierce. And sometimes our love is just shown by over-involvement.
Yeah.
Which, is probably an epidemic right now, this over-parenting, micro-parenting, competitive parenting, whatever we want to call it, helicopter parenting. And the Parent Compass really is an aim to kind of pull back from that and view it through a different lens.
Yeah. And you have 4 kids, right?
Yeah, I have a 25, 22, 19, and 17. So I'm at the tail end of, of through our home. But yes, I have some adults now. And it's interesting. Actually, I was just with my oldest, who I was talking a little bit about one of his siblings and something I was working through. And he gave me advice.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Because he's worked as a teacher and he's worked with teens. And it was fascinating for me to say, you know what? I had not thought of that perspective.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, I only have 2 daughters who are turning 12, but their characters are so different from each other, the personalities. And I mean, I can't imagine having 2 more than what I have, and to trying to navigate through all of it. It's hard enough with 2, but
yeah, 2 is a great number. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to offend anyone who has more than 2, but looking back, we're like, that family of 4 is a really nice number. The world was designed more for a family of 4 than a family of 6. That's for sure.
Oh gosh. Well, yeah. I mean, as a single mom too, I'm like, thank God we stopped at 2 when we did, because I can't imagine.
For sure.
But
yes.
It is fun to see their personalities develop and what they're interested in and just how to parent each child. You see them who they are and not who you want them to be, like you were saying, because it's too easy to do that too.
I agree. And, you are constantly switching approaches or trying a different tactic or a different angle on parenting. And sometimes the best angle is to just let it play out and sort of see where it goes and then find out the best way to kind of insert some pearls of wisdom or some good questions or some good listening, whatever it is that you need to apply. I mean, the Parent Compass was really written as a parent etiquette book to sort of teach parents good behavior when it comes to raising tweens and teens without, being, our title at one point was like, parents behave. And we thought that was a little bit harsh. But the reality is that you could read the book on a Friday and it's not, a heavy, hard read. It's just taking a good look at yourself kind of read. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it and dog-eared it. That makes us feel great.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about like listening and asking better questions, I feel like, again, going back to each child is different. And so sometimes it's harder to pull those nuggets out of them.
That's right.
Are there any tools that you'd be like, this is what you could do at the dinner table? Or when you pick them up from school, like how can you get them to engage with you better?
That's just the $1 million question, right? But the greatest thing about that question is, here's the answer. The worst question you can ask your kids, you heard it here, is how was school today? It's just the worst question. It's such a cop-out question. Or how did you do on that test today? Or something that's just kind of more, a little bit too general or a little bit punitive, like you care about the grade or whatever it might be. Instead, we actually consulted question experts, people who have written books and studied the art of asking questions. You can ask your kids that really do open up more healthy conversations and get them talking. And parents often forget, as you can hear, you're in the podcast business as part of what you do is interviewing, but you can also hear that I'm a big talker. And they say all the data tells us that it should be 80% listening, 20% talking from parents. And a lot of times that number is easily flipped without even thinking about it or realizing it. So asking questions such as more along the lines of, tell me something funny that happened today, or what's something that you learned that you never knew about before, or who did you sit with at lunch? Or, what was your tennis ball today? What were you chasing after? The way a dog chases a tennis ball. Those are the better kinds of questions that get our kids thinking. A lot of families can break it down to the rosebud and thorn as well at the dinner table, the high point, the low point, and what they want to, do going forward. Table topics, as many of us have, or if you don't have the box of questions on your table, you can download questions off the internet of just great things to kind of ask your kids that elicit a dialogue. The key is that it's things they're interested in, not just things you're interested in. So, parents say to me, oh, all my kid does is scroll on their phone. And I say, have you ever sat down next to them and asked them what they're scrolling? Have you ever looked at what they're scrolling and talked about it? And it's fascinating to see, what are in our kids' feeds and what are they following and why is that something that they think is interesting? And right now I'm getting lots of puppy videos and golf videos. I don't know why, but I'm forwarding them to each of my kids who have those interests, and they're becoming, ways that we can chuckle together, ways that we can connect through technology in a positive way, that can bring you closer.
Yeah. No, I think that's all great. I have started doing that with my kids too, of like, what made you smile today? Or I loved one of the chapters was all about goal setting. And so we've started doing that on the way to school too. It's like, what's your goal for the day? Like just to get them thinking in the morning, and then we can have a conversation later. And yeah, it does make it easier.
So my co-author, Jen Curtis, who isn't with us today, but who is equally a huge part of this project, because this is really a baby that we both birthed. Her background is in health, like mental health and social work. And she really is, highly responsible for that goal setting chapter. She does a lot of that with her two small girls, and you can start that at a very young age. And then you can, work up to goals that are, more mature and more tangible as they age. I mean, a basic goal could truly be like tying your shoe, or learning to tie your shoe, or to how to self-advocate at the restaurant, to ask for the crayons and the coloring sheet, or to ask for your water to be refilled, which are ways that we can get our kids not just self-advocating, but also setting their own individual goals, especially if they're uncomfortable with like authority or with adults or whatever it might be. But moving on to kind of setting goals as high schoolers and middle schoolers, not just in school, but in the things that they want to kind of do in their free time or do in their lives. And we kind of spell it out in a very easy sort of step-by-step way that you can talk with your kids about goal setting. And then, yes, check back in with them on how they're doing and what tangible steps they've been taking to reach those goals. And are they still struggling to reach those goals? Or once they've met that goal, what might the next goal be? Usually, not having the goal focus on grades or like an achievement, as much as just a skill that they want to learn to master or something that they want to accomplish on their own, even if it's, I want to write a short story that wasn't an assignment for school, whatever. Those are the kinds of ways that we, want goal setting to be less about just getting better grades and better scores and things that are kind of, putting a number on them instead of making them more human.
For sure. Even this morning, my fifth grader, she just started the clarinet, and I was like, yeah, what's your goal? She's like, I just want it to make a sound. I'm like, perfect. Like something so simple. And yeah, you can work toward that.
And then once you've made a sound, you can make a couple notes. Yep.
Yeah, there's progress. But yeah, I think that that's so important, not putting the pressure about grades or any of that, because I know for me, I loved school and it was all about getting the straight A's. And I mean, there was so much extra anxiety that I didn't need. So I'm just going to lay off of that.
Well, not every kid is wired to really love school. Exactly. They may love a subject or they may love a teacher. And I remember in starting, I worked in college counseling for many, many years with students one-on-one, like my co-author Jen still does. And I do remember being nervous. I was sort of probably the same kind of student you were, that was very naturally motivated and really, would thrive on the grades and the scores and the accolades and all that kinds of stuff. And again, this is, a generation ago for both of us. But yes, the kids already feel all of this anxiety and pressure without us even bringing it up.
Yeah.
If your child brings home a grade that they're celebrating, you can still say, I know how hard you worked on that. I saw you struggle through that. And if it's not a grade that they wanted, you still can praise the effort instead of the outcome.
Yeah.
And then you can set the goals for, okay, what would make that look different next time? How can you, recover from this, whatever that, might be, whether it was a bad grade or whether it was something they didn't expect to come out of that project that they worked so hard on.
Yeah.
It's hard though. It's hard to restrain ourselves as parents for sure. And there is this sense of like, you want your kids to be motivated and like school, but sometimes it's just not their thing. So you have to find what their thing is. And again, if it's an inspiring teacher or an inspiring project or an inspiring class or an inspiring extracurricular, you can focus the bulk of the energy on the good stuff and then say, you still have to do the stuff that's not so fun because that is the real world and going to school is their job. We have a whole chapter about school being your job. So that still is their job until they're done with school, whenever that might be.
Yeah. And I think, you kind of alluded to this, but it's like creating that space, right? To see what they're even interested in. And sometimes that takes time. And sometimes us as the parents don't have that patience to be like, well, what do you like to do? And they're like, I don't know. But just being open and listening to what they like and what they might be pursuing that maybe they're not even realizing that they like because it's just a natural strength too. So
that's right. And, we've exposed them to a lot of things. We're the driver, we're the organizer, we're the one, especially in the younger years, we're just taking them from place to place and either seeing what sticks or throwing a lot of darts and finding out what they enjoy. And I remember raising kids in Southern California and being told by so many friends and neighbors that if my kids didn't do swim team or my kids didn't do sailing,
right,
or my kids didn't do junior guards, they were all sure to like drown in the ocean. And I felt this immense pressure to have my kids be aquatic and nautical. And after one or two of them trying it, it was not even a close call. We were a land sport family.
Yeah.
We were not that interested in the water and the sea. So far, knock wood, everybody's safely made it through, swimming and being in the ocean. There is that pressure around you to sort of feel like you have to fit in. And I don't think there's any need to fit in. In fact, it's much more interesting when you have kids that don't fit in, right? It's more challenging, but it's pretty interesting because they are, marching their own pathway and beating their own drum. And I think that's the best thing we can do as parents is to support whatever those interests might be, even if they're the farthest thing that we ever imagined for them.
Right.
As long as they're safe, then let's help them, let's help foster that.
Yeah. I remember growing up and like, I didn't play soccer, but I felt like all my friends started when they were 3 and I was, in 5th grade and I was already behind. It's like, we don't need to add that pressure like to anybody.
That's right.
But you did touch upon the self-advocacy. And I think that's so critical. And I've been trying to boost my kids up in that, like we'll go out to dinner and they look at me. I'm like, I don't have the food. Like, don't tell me what you want, like tell them. And I think we can do that at a very young age too, just to help them to speak up and to be able to speak to adults and just be confident in their speech.
There's nothing more wonderful than meeting someone else's kid and they just look at you and put out their hand and say, nice to meet you, or they ask you a question, or you can have a dialogue with them and you think, wow, that kid really like interacted with me in a positive way. And that isn't just wired by who that kid is, although that could be part of it, but that's also how the kid was parented and in positive ways. So if we can equip our kids to know that, you can shake someone's hand and ask them a question and be polite and listen and nod and say thank you and all those things. It can start in the classroom. I encourage every parent to encourage every kid to thank every teacher at the end of every class.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Saying thank you is huge. Going to the doctor. If your kid has any issue, they should check in with their name and their date of birth and make the first pass at telling the doctor what's wrong. You can fill in some of the details, but it's about them and their body, and they can explain it. Obviously, yes, at a restaurant or anywhere where they would be asking an adult or someone for help. If it's not you, it's good for them to practice that for sure. And that just obviously, carries into teachers. If there's an issue at school, probably through middle school, you're still involved in the sense that there's parent-teacher conferences and there's opportunities for you to engage with the teachers that may not involve your child. Obviously, when you get to high school, it's all about your kids and their relationship with their teachers. And so if they haven't gotten comfortable going to a teacher for help or, going to a teacher when they've bombed something or, struggling with a teacher that they just don't connect with and figuring out how to maneuver that, that's where a parent can come in on the brainstorming and the role playing at home. And I'm a very big fan of the index card. Old school. If your kids have something they want to talk to their teacher about, they can make their little bullet points on the index card because the chances are when they get there, they get nervous and they forget 2 or 3 things. They can also bring the index card to the doctor or, wherever else they're going to, to self-advocate, because sometimes when you check in with them after they've had that meeting, you say, how did it go with your teacher? And they say something and you say, oh, and did you ask them this? And they go, oh, shoot, I forgot. And you're like, and you don't want to go, you can help them craft emails, things like that. But when it comes to speaking with their teachers, it's great. They can bring in their notes and say, I didn't want to forget anything. So I wrote it down. And that's also respected by an adult, in an interview or wherever. You want to be able to not lose your composure while you might be feeling a little bit nervous.
Definitely. I mean, those are the kind of skills we need to be teaching our kids anyway, I think.
Yes.
In the same vein, I mean, that's kind of a growth mindset too of like, okay, trial and error, and we haven't maybe mastered something yet, but I think that kind of comes into play with that being your own self-advocate. And I have a recent example just at Halloween. My daughter did not speak up about a project that she had all month to do. And it was the night before. And I was like, hey, how is this project going? Like, I haven't seen much. Did you work on it with your dad? And she just went silent. And I knew, you haven't even started, have you? And it was just like, okay. I mean, I had the initial, like, I cannot believe that, like I kind of got the mom rage for sure. But then I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? What are you going to do about this? Like, what is your plan tomorrow when you show up?
Right.
I can help you tonight, but I'm not going to do it for you. Like, I can go to the store and get some things, but you're going to be the one who's going to do it late tonight. And that was a whole process that I had never worked through before. And I was like, dang, this is hard.
Well, Erin, I've written a couple study skills books as well. And I think those are good tools to just have for reference because they help anticipate, like having a planner, having your kid, even from a very young age, write things down when they're due. So you kind of reach those deadlines and you are not alone. Every one of us has had those night before midnight runs to Staples, wherever it might be, or Office Depot, whatever. Thank God for Amazon, right? When you have an extra 24 hours. Yeah, it's true. And sometimes letting them fail and not helping them with that project is the best lesson of all. And that's a really hard one. Hard one. But when you think about what is on the line, it's really not much that's on the line. It's that project. I mean, that one project, so if it's a 0 and it was worth 100 points and in the whole scheme, they're going to have to, fight back to work their way back from that. But if it's like a 10-point thing and the whole scheme and they get a 0, that's probably an interesting lesson to try to learn. But there's so many gray areas in parenting, right? Like
it's so true.
Like have to go, could I have done it differently? Should I have done it differently? And that also is where I say it's okay for us to also apologize to our kids and tell them,
absolutely,
I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said this, or I shouldn't have handled it that way, or I apologize. I'm not saying we have to do it all the time, but I am a pretty big believer that it's okay if our kids see us cry. It's okay if they see that we're human and that we make mistakes. And those are some of the most like, I think really influencing moments for them too, because they go, oh my God, it doesn't make them feel scared as much as it makes them feel like, oh yeah, you're struggling with something too. And we all struggle with things at whatever age we are.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I want them to see me as a human, and I make my own mistakes, and we come back and we repair and talk about it, which my parents never did. So I'm definitely reparenting myself in this situation, and it's like all those gray areas, man, they get you. But it was funny because I battled that. Like, do I let her fail? That's her choice. Definitely lessons learned there.
That's right.
I mean, with technology kind of being front and center for so many parents these days, you guys wrote a great chapter on technology practices.
Yes.
I mean, gosh, I think we're all addicted to our phones, and it's really hard to be the model when, I'm doing all sorts of things, right, in front of a screen. And I wish I didn't have to be in front of a screen all day, but that's the life we live in. But there's no context, I feel, for our kids. So they just see me on a screen and think that that's what they need to do. And it's like, what language, what parameters can you put around just the usage of technology moving forward?
Erin, there are some obviously whole books and seminars and things written on this. And we felt remiss if we didn't have a chapter on technology in our book, because how can you talk about raising teens and parenting without addressing it? It was almost like it's the biggest elephant in the room. And I will say, Jen and I struggled the most with that chapter. We really wanted to make sure that the content was useful and helpful, but also it can't possibly be all inclusive. It just sort of touched on things. And I guess our main takeaways were, we looked at what Silicon Valley executives, the people who, created the technology in the first place, and how they handle technology in their own homes. And we're, shocked, but I guess not so shocked to read that, many of them have incredibly strict limits on their own kids because they know what the effects are, of technology. But what I would say is a lot of families build, sort of a family contract that we call the contract as kind of organic, that it grows and changes over time with their responsibility and age. There are some, excellent other books just on technology that we've looked at, and then some incredible websites. Do you want to go back to the old school flip phone? What are your family rules on technology coming to the dinner table? And just this feeling that it's dialogues that you need to keep having with your kids. And there's a lot of different perspectives and views on it. I think what the worst thing parents can do is constantly post things about their kids without their kids' permission. Because if we're posting about not just accomplishments, but, things going on in our world with our kids, where we are really invading their privacy without their permission. And I remember, when my kids were really little and not really understanding that Facebook, was this huge public forum. And so I've, have private accounts that are created just for very close family and friends. I don't feel the need, Jen and I even talk about the need of broadcasting college admission decisions, for that matter, on social media. It's just not necessary to broadcast everything about our lives to everyone that we've ever met in our life, but certainly our immediate family and close friends and our circle, that's a great group to share them with. And with our kids, I really think that it's just a conversation we have to keep revisiting, and that whatever they plan to post or to text or to send to a friend, that they understand that it's like a permanent tattoo. That it's not secretive, it doesn't go away, that it can be screenshot, it can be spread, it can be shared. And that if it's not something they're comfortable sharing with their mom or their grandma or their grandpa or their teacher or their coach, then they probably shouldn't be typing it, whatever it might be, or sending a photo of whatever it might be. So there are very good, clear lines you can make with your kids about that. But yes, it's so hard when we're modeling the fact that our work brings us in front of computers and cell phones, and, and that we're on our screens a lot too. So definitely taking technology breaks. There's a fabulous book called 24/6, written by Tiffany Schlein, about families that unplug on Friday night till Saturday night. They call it a tech Shabbat. Tiffany's done it for over 10 years with her family, and she chronicles it in this amazing book and teaches you the importance of kind of the breaking away, and that the most creativity and the most love and joy have been found in those 24-hour periods. We can remember back a generation ago when we weren't glued to phones and we were just bike riding with friends and roller skating and walking around school or the shopping mall or whatever we were doing, going to the movies, eating food, having lemonade stands, kind of those old fashioned things that we did before, the technology was such a, pervasive part of all of our lives. So it's a lot, but read the chapter and get some extra tools, and hopefully a few of them will stick for readers.
Yeah, no, I love that. I definitely want to go back to more simple times, as much as I love technology.
I know. Me too.
We'll come full circle. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, where can my audience find you?
Oh, thank you so much. So I have a website that's my full name, Cynthia Muchnick, CynthiaMuchnick.com. But if it's easier, you can go to parentcompassbook.com and you'll find everything Parent Compass related there. And then we have an Instagram at Parent Compass, Facebook, The Parent Compass. And then we have LinkedIn under our names, Cynthia Muchnick and Jen Curtis. But mostly I would say, find the Parent Compass, make a book club in your community, build a village, share the message, share the movement, and see if the ideas in there resonate with you. We've gotten great feedback that it's just helped a lot of families reconnect, re-engage, stop the fighting, stop the yelling, and just kind of recalibrate so that we understand really what this is all about. I mean, the goal of the book was to kind of preserve the mental health of teens, which is a big order, and to preserve the parent-teen relationship, which is also a big order. Yes. And I think all that we want when our kids go and leave us is that we still have a relationship with them that's positive and communicative and trusting. So I think we're all trying to do the same thing here as parents. There's nothing particularly crazy about what we're trying to say, except we just need to be reminded. And they are skills that we have to practice and sort of fine tune. And I find myself practicing all the time. In the book, Jen and I talk about all the mistakes we've made. So we are not perfect. We're far from it. I think you and Jen with younger kids have the benefit of more years of kind of getting to practice this because I wish I knew some of these things sooner myself as well. So it's really been a learning process. And I'm very grateful for your podcast and the speakers that you bring on and the guests and the things I've learned from listening to the people that you've interviewed. So I'm honored to be one of those guests.
Yeah, no, I can definitely vouch for the book. It's amazing. So read through it. But thank you for writing it because it's definitely will help me once I hit those teen years.
I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Links to Cindy's website and the Parent Compass book, as well as BetterHelp Online Therapy, can be found in the show notes. If you find PG-ish helpful, interesting, or encouraging, please share this episode with your bestie, follow PG-ish on your favorite podcast platform, and share on social so that more parents can learn and grow alongside their kiddo like you. See you next time.